a grey and red theme today as I read Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. This has been likened to an adult version of Scooby-Doo with these Blighton Summer Detective Club, and basically these four kids unmasked a criminal 13 years before the events of this novel, and now they're getting back together as adults, recognising that there was some possible supernatural goings on that they have repressed deep down inside. There are three of these kids and a dog returning to the manor in which this crime took place to finally put this case to bed, as they are all dealing with their individual traumas based on what they faced all those years ago. I started reading this last night and I'm currently 185 pages into it. It's big font, wide margins. So far, although we're so far into it, we are only just beginning to see what might have happened all those years ago, and we've just had our first... It's been creepy so far, and we're now beginning to see what might have been going on in the town and the legacy that this crime might have left behind. I am enjoying the pace. The author does have some adjectives, adverbs and turns of phrase that make me wince a bit, such as when he describes something as happening suicidally, and occasionally there's a bit of purple prose that doesn't do it for me. It's still propulsive. There's still something there that makes me want to continue reading, and I hope to maybe power through and finish this one today, because it is pouring down with rain out there and I don't intend on going out into it. Although I do have poems and pints tonight, I'm still unsure as to whether I'm going, simply because I'm towards the latter stages of this chest illness thing that I have had for over a week now, but I'm still very aware that it's there and I don't want to antagonise it in any way. I might give further updates as I go on. I am enjoying the style. It is rather reminiscent of those 80s into 90s horror shows and films, so it does feel very nostalgic. The characters are somewhat what a reader would expect from this kind of tale. Andy, who so far has been at the forefront of the narrative, it reminded me a lot of the strong-willed women that I've read in this genre recently. One that has been coming to mind a lot is the protagonist in Nosferatu, whose name I can't remember right now, but Andy does remind me of her. We will see how this goes on. Sally's behind me looking somewhat disgruntled that I've stopped giving her a fuss, but I am here to talk about Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. I have reached the end of this book. Indeed, all I've done today is read this book, but as I said, it's been pouring down with rain out there and Sally doesn't like the rain, and even if I was feeling at the optimum of my health, I don't know that I would have risked the wet cold weather. I don't know who I am as a person. I know certainly that I didn't think it'd be good for my chest to go and wander around in this weather, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Meddling Kids. Meddling Kids, oh my lord. So this book reads incredibly quickly. I've said that. The characters go through the standard storylines that you'd expect these characters to go through. Andy is a character who, throughout the novel, you find out was often seen as the third boy in this group of 2 girls and 2 boys. I suppose that she really takes on that role that, was it George in The Famous Five took on, of what was often seen as the stereotypical tomboy. And within this book there is the question as to people wondering whether she ever wondered about her gender identity, or is this just the way she chooses to present herself? But that doesn't really come to anything because they are facing the impending threat of a primordial god being awoken. This book was almost like the author had looked at Scooby-Doo and decided, what if the threat was actually real? What if this wasn't actually people in masks committing these acts? It had these strange monsters called Weezers that appeared, and I don't know what I expected with this book, basically. I did expect something to be more of an adult Scooby-Doo about it, I will admit to that, and I did expect for the horror to actually turn out to be almost like The Wizard of Oz and everything was going on with smokes and mirrors. I have to say, really, in terms of suspending my disbelief, I had to do that a lot with this book, and strangely did find that I was able to. I didn't recognise a twist that appeared towards the end. I didn't know that was going to happen. I'd wondered whether something similar to what happened was going to happen, but I expected it to happen in a different way. That's the only way I can think to say that without spoiling the book. In the grand scheme of things, I'll go with what Booklist said on the back. An enjoyable romp. Because I did enjoy myself. I enjoyed the twists and turns this book took. I enjoyed how fast and pacey this book was. It definitely appealed to that part of me that likes mystery, and it appealed to that part of me that likes the supernatural, and I didn't necessarily expect them to be blended in this way, but I could cope with that. Yet the writing. Edgar Cantero creates verbs out of anything he wants to. The brother has decided to enter his room right behind the wall, so this is fun. This is a new thing. Edgar Cantero decides to create verbs that do not exist, one of which is avalanched, and he uses avalanched quite a lot. But the one that really got me, the one that sent me to Instagram, and this is after I'd read the word lemminging. As in, rather than just say following, he said lemminging, like lemmings. But the one that got me was Humpty Dumptied. Now, some people got in touch and they could cope with Humpty Dumptied and they said this was great. I was like, right, millennials. And other people were just laughing at it. It's like, yeah, we can't, because we can't do this. We can't just decide that something is a verb. We can't do this. Tom Jonesing, he doesn't actually use that one, but it's something, you know, when you attribute something to a certain person, an action to a certain person, because if the reader doesn't get that reference, then it don't make sense, Chuck. And I kept finding myself pulled out of the story when these things would happen because these verbs would appear out of nowhere and they just meant nothing. You had to visualise it and I couldn't visualise it. And this went on a lot towards the end when they're like having this big slaloming battle throughout this town, not to be specific as to the location, and they're having this battle and all these new verbs appeared out of nowhere and they didn't make sense. And each time one was used, like, it worked in terms of chaos. Whenever one of these battles would happen and these fights and these runs were happening, I was just all over the place trying to figure out who was doing what action was happening. But that didn't work for me. And sometimes the similes didn't work for me either. One that I just opened the book to and which sticks with me is the amber Chevy Vega glistened at them like a smiling rock Hudson. I don't think it did. I don't think it did. I don't think it did. The author has humour, and the author has references, and the author manages to evoke this genre really well. And that's one of the things. For a piece of genre fiction, this is not a bad book at all. This is very much what it says on the tin. Exceptionally glad to read it. Just what I wanted to read at this time of year. The kind of horror, comedy, thrillery mix that I like, all blended together here. But my word, the writing at times was not great. And I still don't understand why sometimes the author would switch to writing in script as though it was a play or a movie. And sometimes, even though the book's not written in chapters, would discuss chapters. There was something that happened on the final 2 pages that, for me, it was just a little bit too outlandish, but was also kind of like a dig dink wink wink kind of moment. I liked it. If you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, then I think that you'll like this. It's almost like getting to see a reunion without having seen the original series. I got the references to Blight and Summer Detective Club. I got the references to the Scooby Gang. It's fine. It's fine. For this time of year, for something spooky, if you're a horror fan, if you want a bit of nostalgia, then head towards this book, because I don't think you'll go wrong. Them's my thoughts. It's one more book of the TBR, in case I don't say anything further. All I will say is, I hope that you've enjoyed this glimpse into my Wednesday. And until next time, that is all.